Hello everyone, and welcome to Story Summary, the show where we retell the stories of video games. Today we'll be turning our gaze to Hidetaka Miyazaki's take on Lovecraftian horror, Bloodborne. Before we get into it though, a few notes. This retelling will be as neutral as possible, and the editorial content will be kept to a minimum. Also, the main focus of this video is not the game's lore. There are people who have already covered that subject with way more skill than I could ever muster. As such, what I want to focus on here are the events of the game itself. There will be some lore sprinkled in there, of course, if anything to give proper context. And finally, this video will primarily cover the game's main quest. As with the lore though, some side missions will be done to provide some extra context for certain events. And so, with that out of the way, this is the story of Bloodborne. The story begins with the player character strapped to a medical table in what looks like a decrepit clinic. With them is also a mysterious man sitting in a wheelchair.
Oh, yes. Pale blood. Well, you've come to the right place. Yharnam is the home of blood ministration. You need only unravel its mystery. But where's an outsider like yourself to begin? Easy, with a bit of Yharnam blood of your own. But first, you'll need a contract.
This is going to be our character. Canonically, the main character does not have a specific name, so we're just going to refer to her as the Hunter. Once the contract has been signed, the mysterious man begins the blood transfusion. Soon enough, the Hunter loses consciousness. When she regains it, she looks next to her and sees what looks like a werewolf rising from a pool of blood. The beast approaches her, but suddenly it's set aflame. She looks up and sees tiny white beings crawling all over her body. The Hunter loses consciousness again, but not before she hears a voice.
Ah, you found yourself a hunter.
Reawakening and now freed from her straps, the Hunter is finally able to set out. On a nearby chair, she finds a note. It reads, "Seek pale blood to transcend the hunt." With no clear directions on where to go, the Hunter begins to make her way out of the clinic. On her way out, she encounters a beast that looks very similar to the one she saw when she was briefly conscious. Using brutal, raw strength, she's able to overpower it. This, however, is strength she did not have prior to the transfusion. She makes it out of the clinic and into the city streets. The city that lies before her is known as Yharnam. While exploring a nearby street, she's suddenly attacked by what looks like a crazed citizen. The Hunter is unarmed, but she is also able to move with a newfound speed, allowing her to dodge the attack. The citizen is no beast, at least not yet. Even though he still looks mostly human, there is something very off about his appearance. The Hunter manages to dash past him and is able to activate a nearby lever. This causes a ladder to drop down, which the Hunter promptly climbs, hoping to escape her pursuer. At the top of the ladder, the Hunter discovers some sort of mysterious lantern. However, upon touching it, she is transported away from Yharnam. When the Hunter comes to, she is somewhere different entirely. It appears to be a piece of land floating in the clouds, the centerpiece of which is a small yet ornate building. In the distance, the Hunter can also see a great tree, fields of flowers, and countless tombstones. As she begins to approach the building, she sees the tiny white creatures that she also saw in the clinic. They don't appear to be hostile. In fact, they're offering her one of 3 weapons. In our case, the Hunter picks the saw cleaver. A little further up the stairs, another bunch of the little white ones are offering her a firearm. In this playthrough, the Hunter picks the blunderbuss. Inside the building, which appears to be a workshop of some kind, the Hunter encounters an old man sitting in a wheelchair. The old man introduces himself as Gehrman and claims that he is a friend of the Hunter's. He also reveals that this place is known as the Hunter's Dream. He adds that this will be the Hunter's home, for now. Additionally, he says that this is indeed a workshop, one where hunters used to come to strengthen both themselves and their weapons using blood. They don't have as many tools as they used to, but the Hunter is free to use whichever ones they have. He also says that if she wants to, the Hunter can use the doll. He ends the conversation by saying that the Hunter should go and kill some beasts, because that's what hunters do. When Gehrman said that this was now the Hunter's home, he wasn't exaggerating. If she were to fall in combat, she will be pulled back into the Hunter's Dream. From there, she can reawaken in the so-called waking world, where she will be able to face her opponents once again. That said though, so long as the night of the hunt continues, she is tethered to the dream. At the back of the workshop is a note, indicating to her what she must accomplish. The note reads, To escape this dreadful hunter's dream, halt the source of the spreading scourge of beast, lest the night carry on forever. Emboldened to try to find the source of the scourge, the hunter makes her way over to one of the many headstones. From here, she can return to Yharnam to continue her quest. On her way there, though, she notices another human figure. Slumped over at the base of the stairs is an abandoned doll, presumably the same one that Gehrman made mention of earlier. A bit overwhelmed and confused, the hunter returns to Yharnam. Upon returning, the hunter notices a window with light coming out of it. She approaches it and is greeted by a man named Gilbert. Gilbert is a fellow outsider who is suffering from some kind of illness. He came to Yharnam hoping to use some of its famous healing blood to cure himself. Unfortunately though, Yharnamites do not take kindly to strangers. When asked if he knows anything about pale blood, he has the following to say.
Pale blood, you say? Never heard of it. But if it's blood you're interested in, you should try the Healing Church. The Church controls all knowledge on blood ministration and all varieties of blood. Across the valley to the east of Yharnam lies the town of the Healing Church, known as the Cathedral Ward. And deep within Cathedral Ward is the old Grand Cathedral, the birthplace of the Healing Church's special blood, or so they say. Yharnamites don't share much with outsiders. Normally they wouldn't let you near the place, but the hunt is on tonight. This might be your chance.
With no other proper leads to follow, the hunter sets out to try to find her way to Cathedral Ward. As she gets deeper into Yharnam, she encounters more crazed citizens, all of which attack her on sight. Thankfully though, she now has her saw cleaver and blunderbuss, allowing her to more effectively defend herself. By the looks of it, every citizen she encounters has at least begun changing. Into what, she can only guess, but more importantly, there doesn't seem to be a single unafflicted person out and about. She tries knocking on some of the closed doors, hoping to get at least one sane response from a local. Unfortunately, the only two possible responses appear to be a xenophobic dismissal or a mad cackling. Clearly, something is very wrong with the inhabitants of this city. As she makes her way up to a small square, she sees a whole mob of the crazed citizens gathered around a pyre. On that pyre is the burning corpse of a beast. Given this brutal display, it appears that they themselves are unaware that they are changing into beasts as well. This is further proven when the hunter engages them in combat. They shout things like, "You plague-ridden rat, foul beast," and "You are cursed." The hunter is able to dispatch them, but she is injured along the way. In order to heal her wounds, she injects herself with vials of the Yharnam blood. As mentioned earlier by Gilbert, the Yharnam blood is famous for its healing properties. It can close any wound and cure any disease, and as such, it's highly sought after. It also has an intoxicating effect, to the point that it's said that Yharnam produces more blood than alcohol, as the former is more intoxicating. The hunter is a bit weary of what other effects the blood might have, but at this point it's her best chance for survival. As she makes her way through the streets, she comes into contact with other unsightly creatures. Rabid and mutated dogs, giant murderous crows, and even humans who seem to have been mutated into a troll-like kind of creature. Truly, there appears to be danger around every corner. While exploring a building, the hunter comes across another note, which sheds some light as to what's been going on. It reads, "When the hunt began, the Healing Church abandoned us, blocking the Great Bridge to the Cathedral Ward, as they burned all Yharnam to the ground on that moonlit night." At this point, the hunter is very close to the bridge mentioned in the note, so she heads for the gate to Cathedral Ward to see if there is any way to get through. When she gets there, she sees that the gate is closed, as expected. As she approaches though, a blood-curdling roar is heard, and a giant beast jumps down from the wall to ambush her. This thing is known as the Cleric Beast, and it is by far the largest and most monstrous one that she has encountered yet. After an intense struggle, however, she's able to bring it down. She is still alive somehow, but it's now obvious that she needs to find another way into Cathedral Ward. The hunter decides to try her luck below street level, so she makes her way down into the canals. The canals are also infested with partially transformed citizens as well as other monstrosities, but she's able to power through. She manages to clear the path to what looks like a back door into Cathedral Ward. Before she goes for the final push, however, she returns to the hunter's dream to recuperate. When she arrives, she is, to her surprise, greeted by the now fully animated doll. Why the doll is now alive is a bit of a mystery, but it's nice to hear a friendly voice for a change.
Hello, good hunter. I am a doll, here in this dream to look after you. You will hunt beasts, and I will be here for you, to to embolden your sickly spirit.
The hunter recognizes her voice. It is the very same as the one she heard in the clinic. This, along with the presence of the little white creatures, leads the hunter to conclude that what she experienced in the clinic was most likely a dream. The doll is more than just a friendly face, however. If the hunter brings her what is known as blood echoes, she can help the hunter grow stronger. In addition, she is also able to shed some light on some of the things in the dream. For example, she reveals that Gammon was once a hunter himself. For whatever reason though, he now serves as a mentor to new recruits. She also makes mention of the little white creatures. She calls them inhabitants of the dream, who worship and serve hunters. In other words, they're completely harmless. Before the hunter leaves, she also takes this time to acquire some more proper hunter attire. Back in Yharnam, she is finally able to find an alternative entry point into Cathedral Ward. This takes her to an underground graveyard, where she's not alone.
Beasts all over the shop. You'll be one of them, sooner or later.
This man is known as Father Gascoigne, and he too is a hunter. Seemingly believing that the hunter is afflicted by the beast the Scourge, he attacks. They're evenly matched, hunter against hunter. As the battle progresses, however, it becomes obvious that something is wrong with Gascoigne.
What's that smell? The sweet blood. Oh, it sings to me. It's enough to make a man sick.
The battle continues, and it seems the hunter has the upper hand, until, somewhat predictably, Gascoigne transforms into a hideous beast and begins overwhelming the hunter. In spite of this, the hunter is just able to cut him down. With Gascoigne out of the way, the hunter is able to proceed. On her way out of the graveyard, she comes across what looks like a small study. Among the notes, she finds one that sticks out. It reads, "The Byrgenwerth spider hides all manner of rituals and keeps our lost master from us. A terrible shame. It makes my head shudder uncontrollably." Cryptic, to say the least, but perhaps the hunter can find the meaning to this later. After climbing some more stairs and ladders, the hunter finally finds herself in Oedon Chapel, one of the many chapels in Cathedral Ward. After having a word with someone the hunter assumes to be the caretaker of this chapel, she learns that this is somewhat of a safe zone. The caretaker is burning large amounts of incense, which is supposedly what hides them from the beasts. The hunter, however, does not have time to get complacent, so she says her goodbyes and gets on her way. Unfortunately for her, the way to the Great Cathedral, her current destination, is blocked. With no clear idea of where to go next, the hunter returns to the hunter's dream to see if Gammon has any advice. And as it just so happens, he does. He tells her that there is a saying among the hunters: "If things seem impossible, seek a holy chalice." He doesn't specify what these chalices are exactly, but he does tell her that most of them are hidden underground, in what is known as the Tomb of the Gods. Some of them, however, have made their way to the surface. More specifically, one of them is supposedly worshipped in the old valley hamlet. The hunter isn't sure where this hamlet is, but by the sounds of it, she should be heading down. She returns to Yharnam and begins exploring. While exploring a chapel in Lower Cathedral Ward, she comes across another hunter. His name is Alfred, and he is more than happy to share with her some information. He talks a bit about the Healing Church, but also, and more interestingly, a place known as Byrgenwerth.
Byrgenwerth is an old place of learning, and the Tomb of the Gods, carved out below Yharnam, should be familiar to every hunter. Well, once a group of young Byrgenwerth scholars discovered a holy medium deep within the tomb. This led to the founding of the Healing Church and the establishment of blood healing. In this sense, everything sacred in Yharnam can be traced back to Byrgenwerth. But today, the college lies deep within a tangled wood, abandoned and decrepit. And furthermore, the Healing Church has declared Byrgenwerth forbidden ground. It's unclear how many of its scholars remain alive, but only they know the password that allows passage through the gate.
The hunter is intrigued, and the thought strikes her that Bögnenworth is probably a place she should try to find at some point. Still, her best lead is the Valley Hamlet, so she returns to her search. After some more digging, she finds a tunnel that takes her several levels below Cathedral Ward. She finds herself in front of a large wooden door with a note attached to it. It says, "This town is long abandoned, hunters not wanted here." Even so, this appears to be the way to the hamlet that Gehrman mentioned, so the hunter has no choice but to proceed. The doors open to reveal Old Yharnam, the town that was supposedly burned to the ground during a hunt. The hunter has barely set foot inside when a voice calls out to her.
You there! Hunter! Didn't you see the warning? Turn back at once. Old Yharnam, burned and abandoned by men, is now home only to beasts. They are of no harm to those about. Turn back, for the hunter will face the hunt.
Whoever this is, it appears that they've taken sympathy to the beasts of Old Yharnam. As much as the hunter would like to heed his advice, that is no longer an option. As she begins to make her way down into the valley, she encounters what remains of the population. Every single one of them has turned into a beast. After a while, the voice calls out to the hunter once again.
You are a skilled hunter, adept, merciless. Which is why I must stop you.
The hunter's descent is quite the ordeal, as she has to deal with both the beasts and the machine gun fire. While taking cover inside one of the buildings, she comes across yet another note. This one appears to have been written during the night when the city burned. The red moon hangs low, and beasts rule the streets. Are we left no other choice than to burn it all to cinders? It seems the town was burnt in order to keep the beastly scourge from spreading. However, as we've seen with the rest of Yharnam, it wasn't enough. Continuing her descent into the ruined town, the hunter finally finds what looks like the hamlet she's been searching for. Inside, however, awaits something truly grotesque. This monster is known as the blood-starved beast. Judging by its appearance, it seems to have flayed its own back. It's possible that it was so starved of blood that in desperation, it tried to consume some of its own. Now these decaying flaps of skin covers its face, while the rest of its body appears to be excreting some sort of toxin. In spite of all of this, the hunter is able to kill it. She finds the chalice that Gehrman mentioned and makes her way back to Oedon Chapel. Back in the chapel, a new door has opened. With any luck, the hunter will be able to use it to bypass the gate that currently blocks her path to the cathedral. Whilst traversing it, however, the hunter stumbles across a partially obscured door. This leads her to a place that is disturbingly familiar. This place is known as the Abandoned Workshop, and as you can tell, it is identical to the hunter's dream. Inside of it, the hunter even finds the abandoned doll, although she is as lifeless as she was when the hunter arrived in the dream. The hunter even finds a spare set of clothes for the doll. Inspecting them gives a little insight into her nature. Discarded doll clothing, likely a spare for dress-up. A deep love for the doll can be surmised by the fine craftsmanship of this article and the care with which it was kept. It borderlines on mania and exudes a slight warmth. If it's assumed that it was Gehrman who created the doll originally, it begs the question of why, and even more, why he feels such distaste for her now. Looking at her surroundings, the hunter also begins to question the nature of the hunter's dream. On one of the tables is an item that may provide a hint to the answer. It's called a third umbilical cord. And here I need to speak off script for a little bit, as I believe that there has been a mistake when naming this item. I am firmly convinced that it was meant to be called a third of an umbilical cord. I will get into why here, but let's just say that there are some things to back that up. Anyhow, the item description for it reads: a great relic, also known as the cord of the eye. Every infant great one has its precursor to the umbilical cord. Every great one loses its child and then yearns for a surrogate. The third umbilical cord precipitated the encounter with the pale moon, which beckoned the hunters and conceived the hunter's dream. While there are several concepts here that the hunter is not yet familiar with, it seems that there is a strong connection between these great ones and the hunter's dream. What that connection is, however, is still unknown. Leaving the workshop behind, the hunter is able to find her way back to street level and is able to open the gate leading to the cathedral. After fighting her way to the cathedral doors, she is finally able to open them. In the entry hall, she finds an inscription: heir to the ritual of blood, purveyor of ministration. Place your hand on the altar's sacred covering and inscribe Master Lawrence's adage upon your flesh. This appears to be intended for whoever is the current head of the church. One can also assume that this means that the church was founded by this Master Lawrence. The hunter enters the main hall of the cathedral, where she hears someone reciting a prayer. The one praying is Vicar Amelia, head of the healing church. As the hunter approaches, however, something all too familiar happens. Like all non-hunter Yarmanites before her, Amelia transforms into a beast. Her new form is even more monstrous than that of the Cleric Beast. More to the point, it seems that the people most closely affiliated with the church go through the most volatile transformations. Even though Amelia is a vicious opponent, the hunter is still able to come out of the conflict victorious. After the battle, she notices a strange skull placed on the cathedral's main altar. Curious as to its purpose, she touches it. Upon doing so, she is granted a vision.
Master Willem, I've come to bid you farewell.
Oh, I know. You think now to betray me.
No, but you will never listen. I tell you, I will not forget our adage.
We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. Our eyes are yet to open.
Fear the old blood. I must take my leave.
By the gods, fear it, Lawrence.
While the hunter has gained a great deal of new knowledge, she is no closer to finding whatever Pale Blood is. With the cathedral turning out to be a dead end, the hunter knows exactly where to look next. She sets out for Bergenworth. Thank you ever so much for watching the first part of the story summary of Bloodborne. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, stay tuned, because there is more where that came from. Also, feel free to give it a like, if you think it deserves it, of course. I will get to work on part 2 as soon as humanly possible, and if you're watching this and it's already out, then you can just click the annotation on screen. If you're interested in how the next video is coming along, then you can always follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Links are in the description. Until next time, take care everyone, and remember, fear the old blood.